Welcome back to another episode of the Sad Dad Games podcast. My name is Eric.
I'm Shan.
And I'm Lundy.
Yay, you guys get 2 weeks in a row of Lundy being on Eric's Indie Corner. Yay, hooray.
Woohoo!
Yay, we're so glad Lundy's here. I didn't like this. Shouldn't have done that.
That's how I normally celebrate.
Whoops, and now that's just on the internet. So again, I feel like I need to preface the episode with saying still recovering a little bit from my tonsillectomy, so weird voice, slightly sore throat. I apologize for my strange sounding voice right now. Sounds like I'm gargling marbles. But so Eric's Indie Corner. You're here for an episode of Eric's Indie Corner. Yay, hooray. We're going to talk today about a super cool game called The Messenger. And the reason that we're talking about The Messenger this week is because last week we talked about a game called Sea of Stars. The Messenger is developed by the same studio as Sea of Stars, Sabotage Studio, and is set in the same world and timeline. So I figured we'll just cover them both at the same time. Also, Lundy has played both of these games, so I figured it'd be nice to have Lundy here for both of these games because he's a big fan as well. And so yeah, super excited to get into it. The Messenger. So The Messenger is a 2D side-scrolling action platformer with some Metroidvania elements. It released on August 30th of 2018 for Switch and Windows, and then over the next couple years released for PS4 and Xbox One. And then, like I mentioned before, other games from the studios are Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is technically a distant prequel to The Messenger. The Messenger happens many, many years afterwards. But if you've played both games, there's a lot of fun Easter eggs and references and things like that in Sea of Stars in particular to The Messenger. But in The Messenger, there's also fun nods to Sea of Stars, which is really cool because it makes me think that they, like the studio, kind of had a plan, like a grander vision, even when they were just making The Messenger, that they had a thought of what they wanted their next game to be, which I think is very cool. So yeah, we're going to break this down. We're going to talk a little bit about story, gameplay, and then visuals and sound. Story is really great in this game. I really love the story in this game. You play as a ninja and as part of a ninja clan, and one day your little village is beset by the giant evil demon king and his army of demons, and you are tasked with taking the magical scroll all the way to the east side of the island to awaken the eastern hero so that he can help you in your fight against the demon king, and thus becoming the person who bears the scroll. You are the messenger. It's your job to bring this message to the eastern hero. And then the plot really surprised me in this game. It kind of evolves in interesting ways and becomes much more interesting and complex than I initially expected. I was kind of just expecting a fun ninja platforming game and was very surprised with the depth of the story and the interesting just kind of thoughtfulness that went into it that I wasn't expecting. Writing is also very sharp. It's witty and funny and weird. Particularly, there's a shopkeep that you talk to quite a lot, and he's hysterical. He's very the writing in this game. I thought it was fantastic.
If only the owl had granted you such,
the stupid owl in Ocarina of Time. If only he had the same courtesy to. Do you want to listen to this? No, never. I never want to listen to it.
All right, cool. See you later. Yeah.
See you later. Bye. Yeah.
Yeah. The writing though in The Messenger, like that's the thing that stuck out to me the most. Like the humor just was on point the entire game. I was caught really off guard by that when I first started. And then, like you said, the story has a lot of depth. I was playing through and I was like, yeah, this is pretty standard, humorous but fun side-scroller game until about halfway through when it throws you a curveball and really becomes something special. And, like that first half really sets up that second half. And it was so much fun. So
yeah, it does a great job of kind of getting you into a groove. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the gameplay section, but it does a good job of kind of getting you into a groove. And then once you kind of feel comfortable with that groove, it mixes up the formula and it becomes something special. Like Lundy said, it becomes something different than you were expecting, particularly with the story. I feel like becomes something far more interesting than it initially appears. Very big fan of the story, very big fan of the writing. It's just all around very well done. Super big fan. All right, so we're making great time. Moving right along to gameplay. I don't know if you watched last week's episode, but Sea of Stars was not short. We went quite over on that one. So We'll do a nice brisk 10-minute episode for you to balance it out.
It's like Toby Flenderson during the 5K. I'm making great time.
I'm making great time. Usually I have to go to the bathroom, but not today. So gameplay, as said before, it's just really classic side-scrolling action. If you've played any of like the retro Ninja Gaiden games, it's very much like that. You're a ninja, you can jump, you can slash. As you kind of go throughout each level, you get new abilities and new moves and stuff like that. But it all stays fairly simple and easy to control. It's never like too complicated and different combos and attacks. It's all fairly really centered around just your forward slash that you can do with your sword. One thing that I thought was very cool about this game is that it employs an interesting jump, like a double jump technique that they call cloud stepping, where your character, you jump, and then if you hit something with your sword while you're in midair, whether it be an enemy or they have like lanterns or little, anything that you could hit with your sword, if you hit it while you're jumping, then it gives you the ability to double jump. So you can like jump, hit something with your sword, and then jump again, hit something with your sword, and then jump again. And it gives this really interesting like cloud stepping is what it's, or I can't remember if it's cloud stepping or cloud jumping, but it's a cool mechanic that really lends the platforming side of this game its own kind of unique flavor that's very interesting and very fun.
You know what? That kind of reminds me, if I'm not wrong, about like martial art movies, how they can kind of jump
between yeah. Oh,
they
I didn't really
kind
think
of
about
have
that.
that,
That
like,
probably was an influence.
yeah, they jump on like air as they're doing martial arts and stuff.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. That could be an inspiration, but yeah, it's very fun. It's also indicated visually really well. Like if you're in the air and you hit something, then a little like teeny tiny cloud appears underneath your feet, so that visually you know that you have
that's
the ability
100%
to then
what
cloud
it is.
jump. Yeah. So that probably that makes sense. So really like the cloud stepping mechanic. It makes for some really interesting and tough as nails platforming sections. Lundy's nodding his head. I remember recommending this game to Lundy and he's like, how hard is it? And I was like, it's pretty hard, but it's manageable. And then him messaging me like a couple days later, he's like, I can't do it. This game's too hard.
I very regularly acknowledge that I am just awful at video games. Like I am not very good. And I texted Eric probably close to daily where I was like, this game is so hard. And he was like, just you'll get used to it. Like, and I don't think I ever did. And I think I complained like almost hourly when I got to the ice level because I hate
You hate ice levels.
Lundy hates ice levels.
I hate ice levels in every game ever. And it's not like I get there and I'm like, oh, an ice level, I'm gonna hate this. Like I always try to.
No, it is. Don't lie. You never
I try.
do. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I try to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm always like, all right, maybe this one will do it right. And every time I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever played. Like,
I'm going to make 2 levels
so
and they'll be exactly the same, but one of them will be themed ice. And I'm going to make you play them each a year apart. And you'll be like, I hated the ice one.
I went to a hockey game with Lundy and he's like, I hate going to sports games where there's ice because these are never fun.
Not true. Not true.
Lundy secretly has an ice phobia. Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's just
especially when the Zamboni comes out.
Scary stuff.
Scary stuff. I honestly think probably what it is that every game you can't have an ice level without a lack of traction, and that for whatever reason is just like that. That's nails on a chalkboard to me. Like gaming, like I hate losing the traction ability. It drives me absolutely up the wall. And so I'm sure that if you were to create just a normal level but it had no traction like an ice level, I would hate it still.
Interesting. I'm going to make a desert level with no traction. I'm not going to make a level. I don't know how to make levels.
The ice level that gives me the greatest fear and nightmares to remember is doing the slide in Mario 64 with the penguin to return the penguin to its mother. Just nightmares.
So easy to accidentally slide off the side and
just starting over, it's a nightmare. All right, wow.
Yeah, so I I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, so the difficulty of the game, it is pretty difficult. It's manageable, but there's definitely some parts that are tough. Some of the boss fights in particular, like I don't know how Lundy you felt about this, but I found that some of the boss fights, I had far more deaths to them than I did to any platforming. But I'm not a prolific platformer, but I'm pretty good at 2D platformers. It's like my comfort zone. I'm moderately good at that. So the platforming I found challenging but fun. But some of the boss fights were pretty tough for me. I mean, nothing unmanageable, but they were pretty tough.
Very tough. I thought it was very... I think it took me almost double the amount of playtime that you told me that it took, because I just died so much.
Yeah. So yeah, when I give you the playtime readouts, it's, varies based on skill level. Lundy took about 30, 40 hours to beat the game.
That's probably not far off. Like it took me a really long time because I suck at that game and at most games.
We love you anyways.
No shame.
So boss battles are lots of fun. The game kind of starts with the basic level progression where you're just progressing like linearly through levels, and then later on in the game it has some more explorative elements that are more in line with like a Metroidvania elements, which is really cool. I don't want to talk about that too much because I feel like part of the fun of that is discovering it for yourself, but it does open up a little bit in interesting ways, which I really enjoyed. As well as, and this one isn't really a spoiler because it's in every trailer for the game, but they do this really fun thing where they switch between different visual styles. So there's portals that you can jump into that switch back and forth between an 8-bit and a 32-bit style. And the platforms and like placements and enemy placements and stuff might be slightly different based on the two things. And so that again can create for some very interesting level designs and platforming challenges and boss challenges as you're using these portals to kind of flip-flop back and forth between two different worlds. Super cool stuff.
Well, that definitely explains why I couldn't really make sense out of what style was going on. I was like,
Shan's looking at screenshots like, I don't get it. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what to say about it. No, sometimes it felt like it had the level design constraints of an NES era, and then sometimes I was like, but am I not looking at a Super Nintendo game? Like, yeah. I was genuinely confused.
Yeah. So that's one of the main gimmicks of the game is it's fun flipping back and forth, and I feel like that leads really well into the visuals and sound. The visuals. They have two different kinds. It's partially like an NES style game that does a really good job of utilizing the NES color palette to feel like an old school NES game. And then again, you can jump into these portals that flip back and forth between two worlds. And the second world is I can't remember if it's 16-bit or 32-bit, but like either a Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis kind of style of graphics. And it's a very fun, like, both art styles are very well done, and it also means that they had to go through and do basically two different art styles for every single area of the game, which is kind of crazy. It's a bonkers amount, like doubling their workload basically for the kind of game that they're trying to make, which is very cool and really fun to like it. Just everything felt fresh because you're switching back and forth between art styles, and like sometimes you get to a new area and it's like it looks one way, and then you switch to the other style and it looks completely different than you thought it would because it's a different, whatever. And so it does a lot of fun things visually, playing with the different styles of each level and area based on its like 8-bit and its 16-bit styles. So super cool stuff.
Yeah, this is going to sound completely bonkers, like batshit, right? But I think once I was like waking up and so I was half asleep, and I thought this is a good idea for a video game, because I thought, well, what if I could get the IP for Banjo-Kazooie and what would I do with it? And I wanted to...
Shan just knocks on Microsoft's door and he says, excuse me, I've got $20 in a dream. Can I have Banjo-Kazooie, please?
Yeah. And like, I think in my like half dream state, I had thought, well, what if I could retcon the fact that it was only ever, well, it was on 2 consoles, but if I could retcon that it was kind of stuck to the N64, could I create a game where you're kind of in the, like, I think I had in my brain called it like Banjo-Kazooie in the 7 realms, and you create Banjo and Kazooie in like each generation of video game, and they're trying to break through each generation and make it to the current generation, so that you're kind of earning their way into the current generation, so that and you're retconning the fact that they never had each of those other generations because Microsoft
Just
had
pretend nuts and bolts never happened. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I'm still going to pretend that never happened, but it's essentially pretending that they had IP for every generation. It's not that good of an idea, and like the workload would be insane and unfeasible, but that's what my brain had conceived at the time. And this is the first time I've seen somebody do something even slightly similar to that. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It serves very well.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
This is Shan's just any excuse to talk about his dreams for Banjo-Kazooie and complain about Microsoft's desperate misuse of that IP.
Yeah. That's right.
So I agree. I think that the ability to switch back and forth between the two art styles does a lot for the gameplay, like from a gameplay perspective, from platforming, from combat. It's very interesting and worked into those facets very well as visually, as well as story-wise. It plays in a little bit to the story, which I think is interesting. It's not just a gimmick that's there because it's fun for the game. It has a story reason for that existing. So very well integrated into the game. Super big fan of that. Also, the music composed by our favorite guy, Eric Rainbow Dragon Eyes Brown. Same person who did the music who does the music for Sea of Stars. He's very talented. It's a chiptune music at its best. Like The Messenger has a really awesome, punchy, upbeat soundtrack that just gets you ready to jump around and be a ninja and slash up demons. It's a very, very good chiptune soundtrack. And equally impressive is that each level and area has two different versions of the same song. They've got an 8-bit version and a 16-bit version. And so we see that's kind of a theme with the games that they make, is they have different, like they have their soundtrack and then they have different versions of the same song. So it must be something that the composer really likes to do is make a version of a song and then iterate and do a different version, because these two games, Sea of Stars and Messenger, he's done that for both of them. So very cool. I always down to have more good video game music. So big fan of that. But yeah, visuals are great. Animation is really smooth. And music is great. Sound effects are great. It's just good visual and good audio design pretty much across the board. Lots and lots of fun. And the fact that it takes place in the same world as Sea of Stars is always a plus. It's fun to see like little things, like especially I played The Messenger and then I played Sea of Stars and then I went back and I played The Messenger again. And it's a lot of fun to like, oh, I know what that means now. And like, oh, this is what that was setting up. And they're not like, you don't have to play one to enjoy the other. They're their own self-contained stories very much. But they do a good job of having some lore tie the two together, and some things like callbacks that do a great job of referencing each other in a meaningful way and not just being like throwaway Easter eggs. So big fan. They also, I'm starting to lose my voice. This is it's going to have to be close to the end of the episode because I got extra frogs in my throat. But they released a free DLC pack called Picnic Panic, and it adds another 2 or 3 hours of gameplay where you, the messenger, you go to a tropical island and you do, it's just platforming and bosses. There's a story, but it's called Picnic Panic, so the story is, whatever. But there's more fun conversations with the shopkeep. There's more fun areas. There's more fun platforming. There's more fun bosses. It's good stuff. It is also hard as balls. The DLC for this game is so hard. I really struggled with it. I said 2 to 3 hours, but for me, it was probably more like 5 to 8 hours. It really took me a minute to get through this DLC. It does not hold your hand. It's pretty tough.
So for me, it's probably 30 to 40
you
hours.
You should totally try it, Lundy. I'd love to hear your feedback. But yeah, it's really just a really excellent game. One of my very favorite indie games. This is another one that I've been sitting on for a while and wanting to do an episode about, but I wanted to wait and kind of do them and Sea of Stars back to this game and Sea of Stars back to back because I think they go so well together. But I really love this indie game. I think it's a fantastic game. I love this studio. This is another one of those studios, Sabotage Studios, where it's like Naughty Dog, Yacht Club's games, Sabotage Studio, Team Cherry. These are all studios where it's like anything that they do, I'm like, take my money. I'm here for it. Like, you guys have my implicit trust. I know that you make good stuff. So just a big, big fan.
You know, as far as hard games go, it's like, I don't like being at that level all the time. I'm not an elite gamer, and I ain't got time for that. But there are very few games that have demanded my attention such that I have crossed the Rubicon and completed them. And it's been like Hollow Knight and Returnal, and I was getting into Black Myth Wukong. So it's very few games where it's like, this deserves it. And I realize it's like, you know what? It's an ADHD thing. The game has to be so fascinating that it pulls me into hyper focus, and because I need the hyper focus to be able, and then suddenly it doesn't, the challenge doesn't feel as challenging because
it's rewarding. Yeah.
My brain is all the way there focusing on the tight maneuvering. But if I'm like slightly distracted, the hard is that much harder, and I don't even get started. So like Souls games, I hate Souls games because it's punishing 5 minutes into the game, and it's like, you know what, you haven't even started my hyper focus. I'm done with this.
We'll do another episode about a game called Another Crab's Treasure, but I think that might be a Souls game that you could get into, Shan. That's another episode about that. But I agree. Most Souls games are not for me. I've played a few that I really enjoy, but a lot of them I kind of just bounce off of them because it feels like difficulty for the sake of difficulty, which is fun and engaging for a lot of people, but doesn't always hook me. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, The Messenger, great stuff. It is roughly about 10 to 15 hours, depending on skill level. So if you're bad at platformers, it might take you longer. If you're really good at them, you might get it done faster. But yeah, around that kind of mark. So I feel like it's a good length for a game. Not too long, not too short. Very good stuff. It's available for Switch, Windows, PS4, and Xbox One, and it is $19.99. Definitely a great game. Pick it up. $19.99, whatever. Just buy it. It's good stuff. Support these guys. Support this studio. Year. They make good games. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us today, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Eric's Indie Corner. Remember that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, every time. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. And make sure to join us every Monday for our regular episodes and every Thursday for Eric's Indie Corner. And then you can check us out on Instagram as well. And yeah, we'll see you all next time. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Outro. Bleepy-doof, bleepity, bloopity, blow.